Hello and welcome to Business Finishing School. Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started. Our catalyzing statement is a successful entrepreneur inside of every business. Enjoy this module.
Welcome to Module 44, Energy and Legacy. I think that the topic of energy and energy management has been getting a lot of attention lately, and it was so overlooked. I think that for me personally, when my energy is up, I feel that I could accomplish anything. When my energy is down, I feel the exact opposite. And so as I get older, I'm more tuned into this topic of energy management. And I know you've had the opportunity to interact with some of the leaders in the field, as I have, but more recently you have. And so I think that this topic couldn't come at a more timely space in my life. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening, once you realize how much your energy affects not only you, but your environment, and it's so causal. In fact, you can approach life with high energy, and what happens is you start to morph reality. You start to change reality. And there's that old quote that says that we produce the future we want to live into by how we look at ourselves. And there's many, many quotes about that, going all the way back to the Bible. So, Patrick, I'll turn it over to you.
So, really, success is all about energy. You don't win without energy. And one of the things I think, we'll just give an example. You and I were having a conversation earlier. Incidentally, to create some theater of the mind here, we're in Dallas, Texas at MCA headquarters, where Rick is. He's gotten out of his suit and he's literally stripping down to a t-shirt and his shorts, and he's getting his energy up. But anyway, so we're in the conference room recording these modules. I flew in from New Jersey to do this, so just so you guys know, we do put in the effort here. So we were talking today about a deal you're working on, Rick, and I'm not going to reveal any names, etc., especially because you're in the infancy of it. But here's one of the things you said to me. This is a fairly big deal. I mean, we're talking, maybe a deal that's, in the $100 million plus range. It's a fairly large deal. And there's a guy who's a part of the transaction who is holding something that basically could make all this money in this deal by pulling it all together. And I asked you the question. I said, why is he just going to kind of sell this thing that he holds? I don't want to give anything away, and let other people take it over and turn this huge profit. I mean, he'll make a little profit on the transaction. And he said, he's 75 years old, and he doesn't really have the energy for it because it'd be a complicated deal to get through, etc. So it's a perfect example saying, can I go for something big? No. I just don't have the energy for it anymore. I'll sell for a smaller piece of the deal. And this guy's already ultra successful. It's not that he needs the money, but it's just a perfect expression of how you need to have energy to make things happen. Now, I want to give credit here because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is taken from a tremendous book called The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz. So if you want a reference guide, it's not everything I'm going to be talking about, but a chunk of what I'm going to be talking about comes from their work on energy management. So I want to send you there as a reference, and I highly recommend the book. So let me say a couple of things to kind of set out the premise here. Number one, people are pretty crazed about time management. And time management is important, but the bottom line is we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Secondly, have you ever noticed that in the same span of time, say an hour or a 2-hour chunk of time, that 2 hours have gone by and nothing much really happened? Your wheels kind of spun. You didn't really get anything done. And in a different moment in time, 2 hours go by and you cleared your entire task list. You got everything done. The difference wasn't the 2 hours. The difference was the energy you had during those 2 hours. When your energy is up, you can get a lot done. It's suddenly you're kicking butt. When your energy is off, when your energy is not engaged, time goes by, but somehow things just aren't getting done. So energy management is critical.
I remember how many times that you and I have done recordings for this program, and our energy was off. And I remember one entire day of recordings we basically threw in the trash can. And many times during the recordings, we'll stop, we'll get re-energized, we'll come back, and it's a totally different end product for the listeners. So I want you to know that when you're listening to these, you're listening to us at our best, and we manage our energy so that we can give you a product that delivers results in your life.
Absolutely, and and what you just said is is happened. When you're engaged, that's why they call the book "The Power of Full Engagement." When you're engaged, man, you conquer the world. When you're low energy, you're not engaged. So let's talk about that. What are the premises? Philosophy is where I start. So it's what is the premise? You have to build off the premise, right? So let's break it down a little bit. And I hope you're listening. You're going to find this very useful. This is not abstract. So this is very practical stuff. When you're thinking about your legacy, when you're thinking about what you want to create in the world, when you're thinking about being a force of nature, you've got to have energy. So let's talk about that a little bit. First, there are 3 different types of energy. One is mental energy. One is physical energy. One is spiritual energy. Let's break it down a bit. Mental energy, I think it's pretty obvious what that is. It's your brain. You've been in situations where, let's say your body's not tired, but you've been working, like thinking about a problem or looking at spreadsheets. Or I used to get completely mental fatigued when I had to walk into finance meetings. We have our management meetings. I walk in the room. I get a pile of reports. I'm looking at spreadsheets. I'm going through that. Now, for me and the type of person I am, that's not my thing. So it was mentally draining for me. But I had to have the discipline to do it because I was the CEO of the company. However, my physical energy might have been fine. I could walk out of that meeting. Mentally, I'm tired. Physically, I didn't just go do a workout, so I'm fine. Now, vice versa might be true. You can get out of a hellacious boot camp. Physically, you're drained, but mentally, your brain is still there. So you can have low physical energy, high mental energy. Now, I'll give you an example. It's a real-life example with Rick and I. One time, he came up. I was facing a particular problem in my company. This is going back probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And Rick, we were in our accountability calls. He said, "That's it. I'm getting on a plane. I'm coming up there." And we come in, and he ran an all-day boot camp. War room for me, right? It was like a boot camp. He comes up, he sets up, and we started in the morning, and this war room went all day long. We had my executives in the room. Rick ran this thing. He's at the computer quarterbacking everything. He's inputting everything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we walked out of there, and we got the job done. And we figured, what our path forward was going to be. It was a pretty extraordinary and also draining process. So I remember literally walking out in the hallway with him next to me. I had my tie on. I loosened up my tie. My head's hanging a little bit, and I'm mentally exhausted. And he's all geeked up. And he said, "Man, you look beat." I said, "Yeah, I'm tired." I said, "How are you not exhausted right now?" He's good. And you literally were bouncing. I don't know if you remember. He said, "I just love this shit." So for you, that was not mentally draining. We're wired differently. For me, that was a completely mentally draining day. It was rewarding, but it was mentally draining, which takes us to that third energy, which is spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is where you generate energy. When you are on purpose, when you are in your purpose, you are in the position of creating and generating energy. Being on purpose will give you more physical energy. Being on purpose will give you more mental energy. Have you ever been in the situation where you feel dead tired and suddenly something sparks up, a conversation sparks up, and it's aligned with your purpose? It's aligned with what you're passionate about, where your passions lie, and suddenly you find all this energy. It's happened to me, routinely. It happens all the time. I'm guessing that as you're listening to me, it's happened to you. And that was the difference. What we did in that war room was so much a part of Rick's spiritual energy, his purpose and passion, that he literally, after an 8-hour day of grinding, had more energy at the end of the day than when he started. He generated energy. Whereas in my particular case, I was something that I was aligned with me, my values in business, etc. But I don't live to conduct war rooms. That's not, not necessarily my passion, even though we got through it. So everybody's got these varying things. So the thing to understand is that your purpose is aligned, and in my mind, it's one and the same with your spiritual energy, your spiritual purpose, basically. So when you need to generate energy, you are on purpose, and you generate it through spiritual energy. Mental energy and physical energy will ebb and flow. It's your spiritual energy that generates and creates energy. Now, when you are playing to your strengths, you're going to find that you generate energy. When you are trying to leverage your weaknesses, you're going to get drained pretty quick. So here's a clue I heard actually not long ago, and I wish I can give attribution to the person who first said this. I'm not sure who it was. But basically, when you are starting a sentence with "I love to," that's where your strength is. Like for me, I'd say, oh, I love to get on a platform and speak. I could be dead tired. I could have pulled an all-nighter. You put me on the platform, I generate energy like crazy and I come alive, right? So I love to, finish the sentence. That's when you're kind of generating spiritual energy. When you're saying, I need to, or I have to, that's usually when you're having to use a weakness towards getting something done. You're playing to your weaknesses there, and that's going to drain your mental energy. It's going to drain your spiritual energy. And I'm not saying there aren't points where you have to, like I'd say, the finance meetings. I was the CEO of the company. I need to do the finance meeting. I can't say I love to do the finance meeting, but I need to do it, and it's okay. I manage my energy to get through that meeting and accomplish what needs to get done. But when you're getting into energy management, if you can start identifying the things that you love to versus the things that you have to or you need to, it's going to tell you something about what you should be delegating more of and what you should be doing more of as far as managing your energy.
One thing that we have to do as members of the business community, leaders in the business community, is understand the responsibility that we have to manage our own energy. It's no one else's responsibility. So I think a lot of energy management starts with understanding that it's our duty and responsibility to do it. Secondly, consciousness. Part of this process, you may be thinking, well, hell, they're talking about energy now as it relates to legacy. Well, part of the process is being conscious of the fact that you need to manage your energy and being conscious of when your energy ebbs and flows. Along those lines, I have become hyper conscious of when I'm around somebody that doesn't align with my values. Because when I'm around somebody that doesn't align with my values, it's like they are sucking my blood. And I think a lot of people just don't take the time to be aware consciously of that happening. They could be in a dead-end relationship for 15 years and 15 years later say, you know what? I just became aware that when I'm around this person, this employee or this whatever, partner, etc., I just realized that I'm not at my best when I'm with them. Well, that's a horrible thing to wait 15 years to realize. So I believe as a leader you have a duty to be conscious of your energy ups and downs and put yourself in situations where your energy is at a peak. Another thing is diet and exercise. I picked up a book called Grain Brain, and this book, which is in your implementation guide if you want to find out the author, talks about diet primarily and how it affects your brain function. And there's an unbelievable amount of research on this topic, talking about how healthy fats generate energy inside of your brain and how complex carbohydrates do the exact opposite, how they consume and take away from brain energy and brain health. And so simple little things like that that maybe we're not aware of. However, as a business leader, I said to myself, how can I get the healthiest brain possible? And I've read books on it. But this points to the fact that we as leaders need to be conscious. I think the fact that you're in year 4 of this program and you're listening to Patrick and I, you've got a massive leg up on everybody else who didn't make it to year 2, 3, or 4, or who's not even in the program in the first place. So you're managing your energy right now, being attentive to what we're talking about. You're managing your energy saying, I need to be conscious of my business skills, so I'm going to join a program like this. So you're already there. But now what I'm trying to do is expand it out a little bit further. So you're conscious and aware of every moment of your life. What projects are you taking on, and how are they affecting your energy? What relationships are you in, and how are they affecting your energy? What programs are you doing, and how are they affecting your energy? So be hyper aware. I think as it relates to your legacy, if you can manage your energy and become an expert, and when I say an expert, I mean like an Olympic caliber expert in the topic of being hyper aware of your energy states at all times, it'll cause you to be aware of what's good in your life, what's spiritually aligned in your life, and what's not.
So with that, let's get to another set of distinctions that might be useful to help you leverage this more into your life. There are three states of energy, and the credit for this particular model goes to Dr. Donnie Epstein, where he talks about these states of energy, and I think it's a very profound concept. The three states of energy are energy poor, energy neutral, and energy rich. So they're pretty obvious based on their labels, but an energy poor state is where you don't produce enough energy in your day to meet the demands of your day. So, and it's what it's all about. I mean, life is energy. You know, there's matter, there's energy. Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. There's a relationship between matter and energy. And in order to create anything in the world, the whole process of creation is an energetic process before it's a material process. Accumulation of money is an energetic process before it's a material outcome. So form follows energy. Anything that exists in the world, it followed energy. Any form, whether it be money, a skyscraper, or a car, it was energy first, it took form second. So understanding that and understanding the nature of energy in that context, let's talk about now these three states. An energy poor state means that you are not generating enough energy in your existence to service the demands of your day. If you're in an energy poor state, that's where your health starts to suffer. If you're in an energy poor state, your business, if there's not enough energy in the business to meet the demands of the business, you're going to see the business starts to degenerate. It starts to become diseased. Pathology starts to erupt. So energy poor states are weakened states where bad things happen over a protracted period of time. You might have an energy poor day, but when it becomes a kind of an ongoing ritual of a habit of being energy poor, that's where it becomes a problem. Energy neutral is where you're treading water. Basically, you're not going backwards or down necessarily. You're not drowning, but you're also not going forward. You're not moving into a heightened state of success. You're just basically able to meet the demands on a day-to-day basis. And usually, just like treading water over time, if you don't get past an energy neutral state, it starts to decline, and then you start to move toward that energy poor state. It will degenerate. But energy neutral is okay. You're holding on. You made it through. You didn't lose any ground, but you didn't gain any ground. An energy rich state, which is the state that you want to strive for, and again, I characterize a business also as a business can be in an energy rich state. You as an individual can be in an energy rich state. That's where you have energy in excess of the demands. That's the energy of creation. When you have energy that's beyond the minimum demands to service the day, now creation unfolds. If you're a doctor, for example, in an energy-rich state, you go from being a doctor to being a healer. The healing starts when you show up because you're in an energy-rich state. You have energy to give. If you're an attorney in an energy-rich state, that's where your clients start to win their cases. If you're a business in an energy-rich state, that's where you start to attract more business to you. That's where you start to attract more deals to you. That's where you start to grow the business. It's abundant in its energy, and the form follows it. So it's important to be able to check in and be able to say, okay, is my business in an energy poor state, an energy neutral state, or an energy rich state? And no reality. I love the Zen Buddhist saying that Rick brought to the accountability group, which I think about all the time. All suffering starts with one's unwillingness to admit reality. So don't try to pretend you're in an energy-rich state if you're not. Just know reality. What is your reality? Admit that reality, because now, once you have, you can do something about it. So what is the reality relative to your energy states? If you look at it on a personal level, maybe diary about this for a year. Log it. How was my energy at the beginning of the day? How's the middle of the day? How's the end of my day? I do these kind of energy check-ins. So my own little private practice or best practice on this is I literally can shut my eyes and in a moment know what my energy level is at that moment in time. And I do it on a scale of 0 to 100. So it might be, I'm a 92. And incidentally, I like to be in the 90s. When I'm checking in, if I'm in the 90s, I'm pumping out good energy. I'm in an energy-rich state. If I'm in the 80s, I'm in a marginally energy-rich state. If I start to get into the 70s, the high 70s, maybe I'm neutral. If I start getting to the low 70s, that means I'm starting to move towards energy poor, and anything below that is very energy poor. If I pulled all-nighters and I'm fatigued and I'm exhausted, now I'm down in the 50s. And quite frankly, if you ever get to a 0, that means you're dead. I don't know that I've ever checked in with myself and found myself below a 50. That's getting really, really low and really, really worn out. So just to kind of give you a sense of the scale. But look at it almost like a test. If you're in the 90s, you're in an A. You're getting an A. If you're in the 80s, you're getting a B, and so on. 70s is a C. So have some sort of a mechanism to check in with your energy levels. Know where you are. Concentrate on being in an energy-rich state. Understand the difference between physical energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy, and how important all three are. And when you have all three going on, you're really moving in the right direction. Rick had already mentioned the importance of health and fitness to try to serve your mental and physical energy. And then, of course, I believe programs like this are what help to service your spiritual energy, being on purpose, understanding your weaknesses, etc. So there's a lot to consider here. It's not complicated, though, and I think that probably you've had a sense of all this without maybe putting the words to it. And what we're doing here in this particular module is giving you a context, giving you some visibility on it, and letting you use energy management as a tool to create success and legacy.
And it brings me to, you might be saying to yourself, I'm glad you repeated the word, but what does this have to do with my legacy? And I would say it has an enormous amount to do with your legacy, mainly from the perspective of what's at risk if you don't take what we're saying very seriously. I recently attended a talk at the Brain Institute. There's a very large, well-funded institute in Dallas, Texas, and the speaker was there. And he made a statement that was so profound. I said, can you please repeat that statement? He said, the leading cause of death in the United States is sleep deprivation. He said, I don't care who you are, I don't care what studies you read. He said, less than 3% of people that are alive today need less than 8 hours of sleep a night. He said all of the downloads of the chemicals that the brain most needs occurs after you're sleeping for 7 hours. And he had so many facts and statistics. You could Google all of this if you're interested in brain health. But the fact of the matter is, I am in an accountability group, and the interesting thing is the people that I'm in the accountability group with are very successful, and all of them will do anything to get their 8 hours of sleep. In fact, Patrick, we're talking about you, and you're much more extreme than I am on this topic, but you build your calendar around 8 hours of sleep. And, I mean, that's an incredible fact. So the fact of the matter is that Patrick has gotten the awareness to realize I function better, my energy's more manageable, and I'm healthier when I get 8 hours of sleep. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, clearly, and I'm sensitive to my energy levels. So clearly, when I get less than 8, I mean, if I do 7, I'm usually good, but 8 is really where I start to shine. And, I can get away with some, the occasional, I had to get up early, I had a long day, I went to bed a little later because of a project deadline or an objective that I wanted to hit and, put the extra time in to make sure it happens. We all go through that, but what matters is your habits, and we've talked about that in previous modules, and what's routine for you. I am routinely getting 8 hours of sleep. It's important to me, and I am refreshed when I get my 8 hours of sleep, etc. So and now some people would say, well, I just don't have the time. This is the whole point of this module: time management versus energy management. I would rather have less hours in the day, the work day, if you will, but have more energy in those hours. And maybe let's take this to your total life. Have you ever been with your kids and you spent an hour with them, but your energy was so low that you really didn't have a very good experience, and neither did they? As compared to saying, I'd rather have a half hour of energy rich time with my kids than an hour of energy poor time with my kids. It makes all the difference in the world for them and all the difference in the world for me. And as you say, it's about being fully present. When your energy is drained, you really can't be fully present. When your energy is abundant, you can be.
I was handed an article recently about the attributes of a happy marriage, and it's very topical for me because my wife and I spend a lot of time thinking about how we could have a better marriage. And it was funny, it went through all these questions about, do you do this and do you do that? And I'm going, yes and yes and yes and yes and yes and no, and we don't do that. And then at the very end it said, this study that yielded the questions that you just answered was based on husband and wife that had children that were older than the age of 10. Because if you have any children younger than the age of 10, we have found that it's almost impossible to be fully engaged and fully happy in your marriage. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. And then I said, oh my God, I can't believe this. We have a infant, we have a 2-year-old, we have a 4-year-old, and we have a 6-year-old. All bets are off. But the reason I bring this topic up is because I have to tell you, with an infant at home that doesn't sleep through the night, I have noticed that my temper is shorter, and I'm in a bad mood more, and I can't even believe I'm admitting it, but my energy is off, and I have to be super hyper conscious on figuring out ways to get my 8 hours of sleep in. And my wife and I have traded on and off. We've gotten a night nurse. We've done different things. So in preparation for this module, I've realized that for me, if I don't get those 8 hours of sleep, I'm a different human being. Another thing, I want to take it in a slightly different direction, how the risk of not managing your energy and your awareness around decisions and around your emotional state can be catastrophic to your business. 15 years ago, I was involved in the hiring of an executive for a company that we owned. And I, at the time, was going through a lot, and it was the late 90s. We had Y2K coming up. We had all kinds of things going on. And I remember that we didn't check all the boxes on a particular executive. And at the final stages of the interview process, I said, we can't hire this person. He doesn't fit our values. And all of us were drained with what was happening with Y2K. And basically, I give my executive team a lot of leeway to make decisions. And they pushed back. They said, look, we realize that he doesn't fit everything, but we're going to make an exception here because he brings a skill set. So we were choosing opportunities over our values. And there was absolutely no question in my mind that it was an energy-related thing for me. Because of my the fact that I wasn't sleeping a lot, the fact that I was overwhelmed, I allowed this person into the room of my life, going all the way back to Module 1. Long story short, this person was catastrophic to our business. He ended up making mistakes. He got us involved in a lawsuit that cost us more than $10 million. And I look back at that and I say, the universe provides me opportunities to learn things. And had I not been through that incident and many like it, I would not be in a program like this in order to teach you from those negative experiences. One of my objectives with this program is work with Pat to teach you from our experiences, all the mistakes that we've made, so you don't have to repeat those mistakes. Because when people repeat mistakes, I call that tuition. You don't have to make a lot of those mistakes, and you've heard that in year one. When you have a very low energy state, when you're irritable, when you're frustrated, my hope is, and Patrick's hope is, that you realize, holy cow, I remember that module on energy, and this is what's happening. I've got to find a way to rejuvenate myself. So as we go into the home stretch, I want to reemphasize the fact that as a leader who's creating a legacy, you have a duty and a responsibility to be hyper aware of your energy at all times and change direction when you notice that it's down, because your decision-making ability will be compromised. Patrick?
So with that, I think you've got enough context here to now go to work with this. Start thinking in terms of your energy levels, the energy of your business, the energy of your key employees. You can see all the places that this applies. And remember, there's mental energy, physical energy, and spiritual energy, and there's 3 states of it: energy poor, energy neutral, energy rich. Take this information, utilize it, leverage it, and I can tell you that when you become an upgraded energy manager, you are going to grow and your legacy is going to get sealed.
In closing, as one final thought, you are going to find that your most energy-rich states are when you're on purpose, when you're surrounded by people you love, when your projects and the people around you fully align with your values and what you're up to, and when you're accomplishing objectives. That's going to give you the most leverage, and that's when you're going to feel great, and that's going to compound. So take these words to heart, and thank you for listening to this module.
Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started.